Hi, everybody. I think we should go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today for PQMD's Pillar Talk. We're excited to be here with you to talk about aligned metrics in the product donation space. This webinar is a part of a larger series of webinars that the PQMD Community of Practice cultivates to address major trends, leading thinking, best practices, and provocative issues in global health. This particular webinar is put on by PQMD's Knowledge and Innovation Committee, and we love seeing all of you here. Welcome to all of the familiar and new faces, and we're really excited today to talk with you about metrics. I'm Julie Marie Vanderberg, and I work with PQMD as the Senior Director of Programs. I wanted to welcome you together with EJ Ashburn, our Executive Director, Mitch Eiting, the Chair of the K&I Committee, and the entire PQMD team. For those of you who aren't familiar with what we do, PQMD is a global alliance committed to advancing the role of donations worldwide. We have 45 members representing leading NGOs and healthcare companies working in global health to promote sustainable access to quality healthcare. All doing so while abiding by the highest standards in product donation. So as we get started here, please go ahead and utilize the chat box to let us know who's here. Write your name and your organization too, maybe the country you're from. And we'd actually love to see throughout the webinar the chat on fire. So you're welcome to react to what's going on, ask questions. You can post your LinkedIn pages for networking, or also if you're aware of any similar efforts, reports you'd like to share with the group here today, we'd love to see that. We'll also be using Slido. You can see that QR code at the bottom of the screen here. So if you want to go ahead and point any device, any smart device at that, it'll open the web page for you and you can participate in our polls. We have a couple of interactive areas today. Otherwise, if you go to slido.com and type in the code, you can also join us that way. Because of a large audience, we'd like you to please mute your audio. And just be aware that we are recording this video so we can share it with others, and it will be on our website afterwards. And we also invite you to join our community of practice. We'll put that link into the chat box at some point as well. So we're going to hear without any further delay from some wonderful members of PQMD's K&I Committee, starting with Andy Strigachis, who's a longtime and loyal and thoughtful member of the K&I Committee and actually helped us to start this metrics work.
Thank you so much, Julie Marie. And it's really a pleasure to be here today and to share this important topic with PQMD members and other colleagues and friends in the community of donated medical products. So I'm Andy Strigachis. I work at the University of Washington, where I have appointments in public health and pharmacy. And as Julie Marie mentioned, I am a longtime member of not only the K&I Committee, but its predecessors. And one of my early engagements with PQMD was assisting with a survey some five or so years ago that reviewed what were the current practices as they relate to monitoring and evaluation and outcome and impact evaluation in particular among PQMD members. What we learned at the time is that just to call out one top level finding that is of relevance to today is that among respondents, member organizations, the metrics used for M&E vary greatly from things like units donated to improvements in skills and knowledge to number of participants. And to some degree, I suppose that having this current situation, not only then, but current to date, has served the field, but much more can be achieved with a common shared language that defines results of product donations, which in fact is, simply put, what is referred to as aligned metrics. Next slide, please. So this is an area that has been discussed within PQMD and beyond about the need for an accepted number of metrics that help capture the results of product donations that could be helpful not only for internal use within organizations for effective decision-making, but also for the variety of external audiences that pertain to monitoring as well as evaluating the outcomes and the impact of organizations involved in donation of quality medical products. So in order to achieve this, we have to consider the overlapping areas, as you can see here, for alignment. And just to call a few out, at the top is monitoring and evaluation. That is the need for data. Once again, critical for effectiveness of being able to understand not only what is being done, but what is the end product and the variety of outputs that arise from the quality work that PQMD members and other organizations involved in quality medical donations are performing. Additionally, we have a whole variety of stakeholders, as you can see here on the slide, insofar that the need to broaden this circle to allow for all voices to contribute to the shared perspective when deciding on what is a meaningful result and what are meaningful metrics. Resources are critical in order to be able to inform what is being referred to as the data pipeline. To what extent can metrics be a leverage from existing ways in which organizations conduct their business and provide these essential resources? To what extent do these activities need to be augmented by additional efforts to collect data? So impact is whereby one looks at what is the effect of the provision of quality medical products and services. Now, clearly, it's going to vary to some degree depending on the nature of the donation program. But here it's the intent is to identify what are the meaningful results of our donation work and at what levels should we measure them. And then finally, the environment, what is realistic, what makes sense, and what fits in today's environment itself. So let's go to the next slide and think about collectively here, what are some of the drivers of aligned metrics? Why is it that this is coming up now as a important consideration, moving the field forward, as well as moving forward to help member organizations and beyond to be able to have effective, even more effective decision making? Well, some of the drivers include, and let me begin this slide, reset my beginning of this slide by calling your attention to the Slido QR code and invite you to share with us, from your perspective, what are some of the drivers of aligned metrics while I go through this list. And we'll get some support from PQMD to help us see what your thinking is in this regard. So what you see here are a series of potential drivers of aligned metrics, ranging from the opportunity to share with one another what does impact look like? How does one align incentives and metrics to not only support internal decision making within organizations, but also satisfy a variety of external reporting as well? How can medical donations be the evaluation of which and the monitoring of which be harmonized to the extent that we learn from each other and contribute to the same impact measures? So, I've been watching a lot of sports lately, not only the American football, but the Olympics, and just imagine what the difficulties would be if there wasn't common understanding and language around the kinds of metrics with respect to what is it, how many points does it take in order to earn a field goal, or what is the official duration of a game, whatever the game is. So this is an opportunity, and I'm going to turn it over to Julie Marie and team to encourage you all as participants to please contribute your thoughts about what are some of the drivers and the important reasons underlying the need for aligned metrics. Julie Marie, thank you.
Yeah, Jen, I think, can you share the first results? Thanks. There you go, Andy.
Okay, outstanding. So we're already seeing some themes here that interest on the part of stakeholders ranging from donors and others, the need for transparency, benchmarking is another critical driver, expectations management, having a common understanding across entities and within organizations about what is going to be the measured response to the delivery of quality medical donations. And I think efficiency is implied with some of these identified drivers, including streamlining resources. And also, I think what gets us all up in the morning, which is the opportunity to have a real impact. And I don't know if I'm going to ask Tina Greer, who I'm going to turn the time over to maybe even comment on this before you get into your material that you're going to be sharing with us today. Do you have anything you'd like to call out as we think about these various contributions from our participants? Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, the one that stood out to me was the expectations management. So in dealing with so many different stakeholders at IHP, we've got our funders, so our funding partners, we've got our pharmaceutical partners, we've got the aid agencies and others that we work with. And your expectations, trying to align those across all those different spheres is really tricky. So I like that that expectations management of understanding what it is that you are all working to achieve. So to have a common language, aligned metrics, absolutely invaluable. Really like that one. So it's my pleasure to join you today as well. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of International Health Partners. We're based in the UK. I wear many hats as Chief Operating Officer, so governance, HR, fundraising. And so when I joined the Knowledge and Innovation Committee of PQMD, I did say I am no expert, but I really am interested in best practice. And I've learned so much from members of the committee, and it's been a real privilege to be part of seeing the toolkit particularly develop, and now this focus on aligned metrics, which is so valuable. So for me, all these things have to be as simple as possible. That's always my approach. So to have a common shared language is so helpful. So where we are now is we're going to, in this time together, is that we're going to take you through 3 different areas. So we're going to start with PQMD member experience. Then we're going to look at some of the benchmarking data. So that's what our PQMD members are saying around this issue, and then look at the landscape and the trends. So I'm going to guide you through that first one, which is looking at the possible benefits. So we've talked about the drivers for aligned metrics, but now what are the benefits? And here's some ideas that we came up with. We're really interested in knowing what your thoughts are on this. What difference is it going to make? What are the advantages of having these aligned metrics? So this common language to talk about our results and a common approach. So you've got the Slido, the code there. You now know how it works. So please start engaging with that. And I'm just going to talk a little bit to some of these things on the screen that you can see. So when we talk about consistency in terminology and methods and data, I always drawn to governments because they love to use statistics in so many different ways. So when you're talking data, unless we have a common understanding of what it means, we had a debate, for example, in the UK recently about unemployment figures and figures in employment. And you know that the way that figures are being put together are changing all the time, and it's about looking good. But if we had a consistency in that, wouldn't that impact trust in the way we talk about the results and the impact of product donations? So that increased trust is a really key first point. So hopefully you're contributing on the Slido still while I talk, and feel free to share whenever you think is appropriate, PQMD team. But also agreeing on what's important. So for some, what's going to be important is the value of the products that are donated. I know we have to report on that for our statutory accounts, but for some that is going to be really key. Whereas for others, we wanted to know, well, how many treatments? But even when you start talking about treatment numbers, well, we might say a course of antibiotics is a treatment, but someone else might say a treatment is something related to units only. So again, consistency, agreeing on what's important. This would be so valuable to come out of this. And then having that confidence, knowing what it is you want to measure, to then invest in your ability to measure that. So you're monitoring and evaluate and what you're going to learn from that. And that leads to your better quality data. And for us, it's so clear that funders are particularly interested in this, all our the product donor partners that we work with, our corporate partners. So the more that we can talk the same language, build that trust and that consistency, the more we can leverage product and have that impact. So here's what you've been saying. So we're agreeing on what's important. Yeah, that really resonates with you. And then a better understanding of the needs. Okay, so understanding what is driving us to do what we do. Reinvestment from donors. Yeah, so that ability to communicate to our donors what it is that we're achieving with their support. Usability of donations. I'm trying to work out what that means. Anyone can help me out on the panel. Benefits, usability of donations. I'm not sure about that one. Maybe you can put in the chat what you mean by that. Accountability, absolutely. So being able to speak to what it is we're achieving authentically in a language that we've agreed, and then the consistency. So we're just going to move on to the next slide, which is about, and thank you for your contributions. The next slide is really about what PQMD is hearing from its membership in terms of, so the organisation that are members of PQMD, what are they saying about aligned metrics? And some of the things that PQMD is hearing is that organisations are re-examining why and how they measure their results. So what's important to know and how are they going to get that information? So there's a lot of thought being given to this and the approach, and then seeking to connect that data to what other data is available. That might be regionally and geographically held by different actors, others in the sector, and trying to connect that. And perhaps that's is what you were hinting at in the last slide, the usability of donation. So connecting to that, a demonstration of need or an ability to assess need in a way that we have a common understanding of it. And then this third point, I'm sure many of you from the corporate sector are really aware of this drive towards ESG, so the environmental, social sustainability, governance, and that move seems to be the successor to corporate social responsibility. So that language of wanting to be able to demonstrate impact in terms of particularly the Sustainable Development Goals, and so needing to invest in something that is going to give you the information you need to report in that new way under the ESG headings. And then finally looking at, reconsidering how they work with partners to get the data. So who plays what role? For us, we're very much in the middle, and we're dependent on our on-the-ground partners who have access to some data, which they share with us, and some reporting, and then looking at what our corporate partners want and are looking for in this area, and then exploring what people are, and I can't see the slide because someone's put a comment over it. I forgot what I was going to say, what their role should be in aligned metrics. So members looking at what part they can play, particularly thinking from the different sectors that we all represent. So we're seeing that it's a time of opportunity to explore aligned metrics, and to be present and part of this is really crucial. So we're really glad you've joined us, and I'm going to hand over to Julie Marie.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, no, I get the pleasure to speak with you about PQMD's benchmarking survey data. Our benchmarks are administered but as a service to our PQMD members, and all of the questions are designed by the sector leads. So we have the corporate sector and the NGO sector. And obviously with some help from their sector colleagues, they decide what they would like to benchmark against each other on. And these surveys cover quite a broad scope of content areas. We've chosen today to highlight just a few areas that we believe would be help us to kind of tell this story and highlight, demonstrate sort of what we're seeing, but also give us some insight into the future for the metrics conversation. So next slide, please. This one on the left, we asked our members about whether they require distribution reporting data, and then on the right-hand side, it's impact or outcomes data from their product donations. And you can see the clear messages, more people, collect all the time. So the way that this is answered is the darker color of the two slides is always, and the lighter one is sometimes. And obviously there were different reasons for that, but that more people, of course, require distribution data than outcomes data. It's not surprising. Next slide, please. I'm going to go rather quickly through these because we want to be able to paint the whole story and get some more interaction going, but you can always reach out to me or anybody at PQMD to learn more about this effort. So here, this slide again shows us what we already know. We're really good at collecting those classic metrics of sort of where our product goes and who it reaches and how much it weighs and what the value is. Also, I wanted to let you know that these are just a few highlighted measures. NGOs chose to ask on a number of different things that the corporates didn't, including sort of the number and types of corresponding services that are offered alongside the product, or the names and number of local partners, cost benefit analysis. And the corporates also asked on lots of different things, such as lot numbers, product code, the focus of the donation, if it was sort of a ongoing standard donation or a disaster, in response to a disaster. Customs clearance reports and expiry dates also were on the corporate one. Go ahead, Laura, thank you. This slide we wanted to kind of show for a couple reasons. I think it kind of tells two different stories. Let me just explain it first. So we asked the corporates and NGOs about what impact or outcomes data they were collecting. And again, this is just a sample of the indicators we asked on. And the lighter green indicates that they're currently collecting this data. The teal kind of bluish says that they are not collecting it, but they think it is ideal. And the dark blue, just they didn't indicate if it was ideal or that they were collecting it. So I kind of think the two stories that this data shares is that one is that we're hungry kind of for more meaningful metrics. There's a lot of that kind of greenish teal up there. And that maybe even different levels of measuring, such as, maybe the healthcare provider's opinions or what is it doing at a facility level, where is our product making a difference? And I think it also hints at an interesting, maybe more subtle nuance is that there's a possibility of tighter alignment even among actors who work together. If you wanted to take a look at sort of the change in perception of quality, right kind of smack in the middle there, you can see that while 67% of the corporates would like this information and would like to get that information more often, almost 50% of the NGOs, and for PQMD that's a important number because a lot of these people work together. So 50% are saying that they're currently collecting it, even though 38% would actually like to collect it more, or a different group of actors would like to collect it. But so it's just a hint, like we said, at kind of some of the information that we're able to see. I want to recognize PQMD acknowledges that this is really just a snapshot of something that's happening within our membership. And in order to Andy's point earlier and Tina's point, and everybody here actually on the line, we don't have a kind of complete picture or vision. We would need to also kind of incorporate other actors and other voices into this data, such as most importantly for us, it's sort of the leaders at a regional or local level, that middle mile sort of group. And so we're definitely interested in hearing from you if any of you are on the line today about joining our work. And PQMD is really excited to be kind of able to lead a conversation in this area, and we're looking to build the relevancy and authenticity of the work that we're doing. I think that's it for that slide, Laura. And I know I went fast, but now we're going to actually, Laura's going to talk to you guys a little bit about how our members work kind of within the current landscape and environment that is always changing around us.
Thank you. And Julie Marie, give me a number of minutes that I shall shoot for to save time for the conversation at the end. Oh, sorry, I think you're on mute. You are on mute, actually, but I'll jump in.
Sorry, I was just going to say maybe 5 to 8, like it depends on, but yeah.
I want to make sure we have some time at the end. I know we've got 15 minutes left on the clock. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm a consultant who works with corporates and with NGOs as well, and with organizations like PQMD. And I specialize in impact measurement and helping organizations make sense of their impact and what that looks like. And I've been fortunate to work with PQMD both on the company side when I was inside a pharmaceutical company and involved in some of the work, the early work on the PQMD measurement ecosystem, and now on the outside, sort of that have been hired to help continue to keep the momentum going for this work in coordination with the many wonderful members and committee representatives. And so again, thank you. I'm just going to briefly acknowledge the sort of interconnected landscape that organizations that are involved in product donations in this space find themselves in, which I'm sure you're all much more familiar with even than I am, and how that sort of will have implications when it comes to measurement, and when it comes to the realities that you're facing when you sort of go back to your desk and have to think about what frameworks you need to sort of navigate in, speak to, and sort of ideally connect all of those dots to, so that ultimately what PQMD is sort of supporting and creating in this space connects to things that already exist, and they reinforce each other, and it does not sort of sit in a vacuum off to the side that is unrelated to everything else you're doing. To jump into this conversation on external frameworks that are important and relevant to this work, we would be remiss not to mention the Sustainable Development Goals. This data comes from the same survey that Julie Marie was describing, directly speaking to PQMD members. And of course, I think the two biggest takeaways on this slide are that, of course, number one, the goal number 3, SDG goal number 3, which focuses on good health and well-being, is certainly the most commonly reported SDG that an organization responded to as being important, and to which its organization is contributing. But also the other big takeaway is that there are so many others that have been checked, and anyone that has worked in the global health and development space, of course, including those who develop these Sustainable Development Goals, are certainly aware of the interconnectedness of all of these. Some other commonly clicked ones were certainly partnerships, which we know is important for all of this work, water and sanitation, and there's gender equality and education as well. I'm going to move on to another question in that same survey that this focuses specifically on what companies responded to, but I think it's important. There's a parallel. First, there's a parallel for NGOs that is important, but it's also important, I think, for NGOs in particular in a relationship where they're receiving funds or donations from a corporate, to just simply, to understand and connect into this as well. This, sometimes we call it alphabet soup that we see in the corporate space, but just briefly on the left-hand side, some of the most commonly sort of highlighted rankings that these companies are reporting to include the Access to Medicine Index, ATMI, Association for Corporate Citizenship Professionals, the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and the Committee Encouraging Corporate Philanthropy. And of course, as I'll show you, and then there are several items mentioned on the right-hand side as well. I'll show you in a moment, by the way. We'll return a bit to this concept of this interconnected network and web, but I want to just zoom out for a moment as well. And so what we just showed you was how members responded to a survey. And what we found interesting to sort of complement that is how are members kind of communicating about this interconnected, framework soup that they sort of find themselves in and have to sort of connect to and report to stay relevant. How are they putting that out to the world in public-facing reports and websites? And PQMD had an opportunity to partner with Rutgers University through one of the classes that sort of focused in this space, working with undergrads who admittedly for them were sort of, it was a learning opportunity. And so they were sort of jumping in and learning about the space while also, doing doing a project that we found a lot of value in, seeking to sort of go out to those public facing reports and, extract as much information as they could and try to synthesize it and understand trends in the space. And I think in particular, just a quick glance at a couple of the frameworks that they saw, going sort of blind into these websites and reports. What did they see coming out the most? Looking at both NGOs and corporate members, and they saw, access to medicine again, certainly Sustainable Development Goals at the top, and World Health. I think a big takeaway here for us was sort of like a little bit of surprise in that was all that came through, knowing how much organizations are sort of putting into this behind the scenes. And so again, just as Julie Marie has sort of been iterating throughout this, just that concept that there's a bit of a gap between, even going back to some of your responses in these surveys about expectations, how it all sort of leads from your operations and what data you're collecting on the ground all the way to the top and what you're putting out there into the world, and sort of, how does the product donation space, which weaves in and out of all of these interconnected spaces, find a solution that will help when it comes to sort of aligning metrics in the space. The last thing I'll say,
Laura, can I just interject really quick? And that study for that project for us was really interesting because, from a layman's perspective, we're just showing you the landscape analysis piece here, but there was no rhyme or reason or general kind of accepted way to present how these products were making a difference for people worldwide. We asked them to look at, whether or not there were statistics or metrics that were being used like consistently. Also, how people use stories or how people use photographs to describe what they were doing. And so we learned a lot, and I think our members learned a lot too, because they're the idea of why are we measuring was important. What are we putting out there? How are the products really making a true difference? It gave us a little bit more insight to look at it through the materials that our members actually produced to talk about their work. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you for bringing that point in. This last slide, I won't read everything. I want to make sure we have time at the end, but just a note that available on the toolkit is a scan that we conducted in late 2019 that sort of went out to the topic areas that we at the time felt were most closely linked to PQMD members' works and that had come up the most in conversations with members, mostly sort of more squarely in the global health space, specifically on product donations, as you can see, disaster response, global health and development, and bringing some of the CSR and NGO more broad frameworks into it. And as we continue forward, we are as we mentioned earlier on, sort of continuing to circle out and understand how companies and NGOs are, what are they facing when it comes to demands on reporting about their work. And the last thing I want to say is, why is this important to our work? And number one, I said, so that our work doesn't sit like, in a vacuum, unconnected to all of the sort of other demands on your data that we know you have. And two, I think we can learn a lot from some of these frameworks. While all of these frameworks are not specifically in the product donation space, they all have a way of sort of articulating what impact can look like and sort of, walking organizations through a way to align across a diverse space with broad, groups of actors. And so I think we can actually learn content-wise and structure-wise from these frameworks as well. Thanks. Should we pass it back to Julie Marie? Is that right?
Okay, yeah, thanks. So we have some more Slido kind of interactions coming up. If you want to, I don't have the Slido code on here. Can somebody put it in the chat? But we're just, the first one is, no, that's okay. I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about what PQMD does. And I think most people are familiar with what we do, so I'm not going to go into depth about this, but I just kind of wanted to highlight the toolkit is our kind of signature effort to really develop a suite of tools and help people to build their own M&E muscle within their organizations in the product donation space. We have a great community of practice where people can come together to explore issues that they need to work with their peers on. And then, of course, like there's this larger capacity that PQMD has to sort of zoom out and lead a conversation across groups and across different donation models to benefit the entire sector. And of course, that's where the metrics work falls. And we can probably just go right to I think the next slide is the pyramid. We're going to drop a link into the chat about this, but this is something that's resonating within our membership for how we're starting to structure an ability to link their everyday activities to kind of the impacts that they're trying to contribute change, meaningful change to. And there's that gap that's kind of in between the green boxes and the gray boxes across is where we are all struggling kind of in seizing the opportunity, let's say, together to work through this. But it's just kind of a donations twist on a classic logic model, and we're really excited to deepen this work. So again, please contact me or Andy or Tina or Laura, anybody, if you'd like to become engaged with this work. We'd love to have your insight. So that's great. And then we can kind of see the Slido. I think that first question's been up there for a little bit. And I think we kind of just asked, we're going to transition to some of the Slido questions. I think I saw too, there was one a question in the chat from, did I see that right? From Susan? From Bonnie. So asking, is there any guidance on how frequently data or metrics should be collected? There's definitely norms. I mean, we can talk to the surveys that we have. Most people are collecting kind of that distribution data on a quarterly basis and the impact data on more of an annual basis that's coming from both the NGO and the corporate sectors. But there's a little bit of variability in there, of course, and by program. We have a great case study in the toolkit from MAP International that talks about how they do less frequent evaluations, but they're able to extrapolate sort of impact data across the programs that they do as well. So we have some great guidance in the toolkit. So look at this, almost everybody who has answered is currently adjusting their approach to M&E for product donations. So we find ourselves among good company. How about the next one? Let's see. So this is a word cloud. We wanted to know, like, for you all who are on the line with us today, what are the important things that you want to capture for your product donations? What are new areas that you're looking into? I can tell you I did a little bit of work when I was getting my master's thesis on trying to understand the value of product donations from a recipient perspective versus the value of them from sort of the donor perspective, and they varied significantly. And so we just kind of wanted to see if you guys had any burning indicators that you were looking at right now. I'd love to just take a minute and let you guys enter in some of this. You know, the most surprising one I found when I did that research some time ago was the cost in time. People wanted to measure like the value of the donation versus the cost in time to actually receive the donation on the receiving end. Mostly because also we had an interesting webinar recently where we were talking about the disaster response and relief, and again, how much of the products that we're donating kind of get stuck after they've cleared customs because the capacity to get them where they need to be, just a limited human resources. And so how can we think together to boost that and to anticipate that? Look at these. Impact, number of treatments. There's a great case study by AmeriCares too for their total reach study where they are offering an algorithm. They made it publicly available through a partnership with Johnson & Johnson that you can determine the total reach, or so the number of treatments. That's on our website as well. Money saved for an organization. It's great. Does anybody else on the panel want to comment on any of this? So we definitely have a lot to talk about, and we would welcome kind of further conversation. I am seeing the time, it's 11:45. We can continue the panel, a couple of panelists and I had talked about, we can continue to go have a couple more Slido questions, but I'll absolutely understand if you need to sign off at this point in time. We wanted to thank you for joining us. We feel honored to share this time with you today in this space. And so for those of you who are new to PQMD, welcome to the PQMD family. Please join us for further webinars. And for those of you who are frequent visitors into this space, we're really excited to have you helping to form and shape this conversation. So I'm going to offer that we go to the next Slido question, Jen. Good to see that some of you can remain with us. Okay, this was an interesting one for us as we're doing our work. We wanted to see what are some of the barriers that you're facing in capturing the results that you want? Like if you could put a name on what it is, like if we had a Band-Aid or a particular, a way of treating the problem, what would that thing be for you? I see Matt had to jump off. Matt Goldman from Amgen has posted a message in the chat saying that he really wanted to reiterate. He's been instrumental for us too at PQMD to help us kind of understand what's going on in the ESG space as corporates are sort of reshaping how they're collecting data, not only for product donations, but across the entire business. And so he, his message there in the chat says, please to be harmonized with other efforts that are going on. And we very much want to do that. I think that PQMD has a unique place in that we're looking deep at a particular area, which is product donations. And so we can start to trial some different models of working among stakeholders and coming up with aligned metrics that work, that are simplified. They have to be operational and feasible. So we look forward to that. Thanks, Laura. So what are we seeing here? Andy, Tina, do you want to comment on this?
A lot of it seems there's quite a lot about capacity there, so access to what others have. So this is an area where our partners in the field particularly are very overstretched, so actually accessing the data from them, it's another request we often hear, and that's sort of reflected there, isn't it? The ability to partner organization, partner capacity, getting the data from the field. That's because they have 1,000,001 other things to do. Yeah, 1 or 2 steps removed from end use. So it's that connection there. There's quite a lot overstretched. Yeah, reflected in that. It's very interesting, and definitely our experience.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is
Laura.
the K&I toolkit is it's a living document, and there is guidance within it on how to overcome some of these barriers. But to the extent that we're identifying additional areas that need greater attention, through a combination of methods, webinars, outreach, K&I toolkit 2.0 or 3.0. I think this is really useful information. Thank you.
And why don't we just go to the last, we have actually 2 more questions. One is more of a thinking question where we're looking for input from you. And then we just had a quick reflection we wanted to ask you guys as well. So who are the key stakeholders for you when you're considering your data, your processes, your systems, you're even developing the indicators? Who sits at the table when you do that? And who should sit at the table? We have no stakeholders. Oh, there we go. This is important feedback for us too, as we gear up to kind of become more engaged in this space. We really value your opinion, your insight. What do you think needs to happen? People who are key partners. It's pretty clear. What do you guys think? Anybody want to comment on that? And audience, you're very welcome to unmute and comment at any moment too. EJ, I see you're commenting. Do you want to just unmute or I could read it for you.
Sorry, it was actually in reference to the previous question.
Okay.
I mean, the previous Slido. I mean, all of those things that were in the previous slide are so familiar, but it isn't off, and it was really strong in the slide about the capacity of NGOs to share information with donors, but it's quite often the case that the countries in which they're working don't have the capacity to actually collect the data themselves, which in turn then means that the NGOs can't collect it and can't deliver it to the donors. So I thought that was really just a really great thing to consider for the future as we develop these kinds of programs, that we can create universal metrics, but it does need to be done in partnership with the countries in which everyone is working.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the final Slido question, and this is a quick poll. You can check all that apply. We would love to hear from you. Kind of what would you like to see? Tell us how PQMD's aligned metrics work is valuable to you. Oh gosh, I had networking twice. I'm sorry, I'm just noticing that. Lots of networking. Thank you, guys. I think this final slide, we can leave it up as people are responding, but we are, I feel like it's an interesting time. I think everybody's sort of in it together. And I will say that PQMD, I'm very lucky to work here because it's such an amazing group of people who are contributing in so many different ways and so willing to work together and to come up with solutions that will work across different programs, across different partners, or even just to share resources. So we would love for you to use the toolkit, love for you to talk to us about membership. If you're kind of new to us, PQMD is excited to have you here and be in this space. And with that, I wanted to say thank you again for joining us. And this is the official end of the webinar. If I feel like if anybody wants to stay on and chat or discuss among ourselves, I can certainly stay on to the top of the hour. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day. And you can look for the recording of this session along with any of our other sessions on our website. Thanks to Andy, Tina, and Laura.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.